to Uncanny Catholic. I'm Ursula Bielski, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. On this episode, I want to talk about something that has been really bothering me since I first became aware of it, but it's also connected to another subject that has been increasingly troubling me as well. The main topic today is the rather unusual ministry of a Catholic priest and brother named Father Nathan Castle. And that secondary subject that underlies this one is the promotion of not only Castle, but many other occult activities by the popular Catholic apologist and media personality, Jimmy Akin. Now, you may know Jimmy's work well if you're a Catholic, especially if you're on this channel, because Jimmy is very into the paranormal. In fact, I think he's about to start teaching a class on Catholic parapsychology for either the Parapsychology Foundation or one of those organizations, which is also very troubling. But I'll talk about more about that on another episode. But if you don't know Jimmy Akin by name, you might know him by sight because he is unmistakable and rather iconic, actually, with a long red beard. And he often wears full Western regalia with cowboy hats, rhinestones, and fringe outfits and such. So he's very distinctive. Now, on this episode, I'm not in any way attacking Jimmy personally or Father Castle personally, but I do think that both of these gentlemen are being led very far astray. And I know a bit about how this works because it happened to me. And I came to my senses after getting into a very dark place through my pursuit of the paranormal, using increasingly occult means to try and understand the functioning of the paranormal and the supernatural, which is a lot of what we talk about on this show. And I refer to this a lot. And I'm finishing my memoir about how this happened to me and how I got out of the occult as a Catholic after getting into it. But I digress. Let's get back to Akin for just a minute. Now, Akin doesn't have any fancy degrees, but he's got this amazing mind, like a supercomputer, and he seems also very humble and soft-spoken, but he is also known for this keen interest in the paranormal and occult and for his enthusiasm, shall we say, for a lot of activities that are obviously occult that, like I used to do, he identifies as scientific pursuits. So he kind of says, as I also used to do, that this is in the interest of science and that certain people who are qualified to study these kinds of occult functionings and occult phenomena um, are allowed to do that in the eyes of the church, and I totally disagree with that. At any rate, Akin is very popular. He's a very popular Catholic apologist, and Catholics overwhelmingly accept what he says is the truth, including very conservative Catholics. He's often talked about as being a favorite theologian, even among priests and higher ups like monsignors. One of my favorite priests, and I know a lot of yours too, is Father Chris Alar at the National Shrine of the Divine Mercy in Massachusetts. And Father Chris has numerous times mentioned how Akin is one of his favorite Catholic theologians and apologists. So it's a little troubling. I mean, Father Chris is very conservative normally, and I don't know. I don't know if he's looked deeply enough at the kinds of things that Akin promotes. So at any rate, Akin has a podcast called Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, and it's into almost like the 300th episode, I think. And he takes these deep dives into these fringy and paranormal topics on the show. And the show would be great. And it's very in depth. It's often 2 hours long. He looks at everything through theology, the catechism of the church, the magisterium. But the problem is that at the end of a lot of these episodes, he condones occult activity. And so, as I meant, it's more than a bit troubling. And today we're going to talk about someone that Akin has extensively covered on his show, and that is Father Nathan Castle. Akin has told the story of his own conversion to Catholicism. And you can find it in a book called Surprised by Truth, where we learn that he became a Catholic after long years of deeply disliking Christians and following after New Age ideas, like reincarnation is one that he mentions specifically. Now, Akin married a woman named Renee, who had been in a part of a UFO religion. She was actually raised in a UFO religion, and she later began identifying as Catholic. But by then, Jimmy had abandoned the New Age, sort of, as we'll see, and become a Christian. And he now wanted to be a Protestant minister. So Renee's Catholicism was problematic because if they were going to be a Catholic couple, he wouldn't be able to be a minister and he couldn't be a Catholic priest, obviously, and also marry Renee. So Jimmy says he began to actively try to dismantle both Renee's Catholicism and her New Age beliefs as well by giving her books to read that disparaged both of them. And it worked. Renee left the New Age behind, and then she decided she was now a Protestant too. The couple married, but soon after the marriage, Renee went back to identifying as Catholic. So Jimmy had to change his plans and eventually had to change his religion. As someone that's also deeply involved in paranormal research my entire adult life, you'd think I would be the first in line to gush over Jimmy Akin, and I probably would have been if I'd encountered his work before I woke up to the abominable quality of the things I was doing in my own research into like spirit communication, especially in my paranormal investigation work, and in promoting the psychics and mediums and other occult practitioners that were, and a lot of them still are very good friends of mine. And it's extremely difficult because you have to face the fact that you come to understand that the gifts that many of your friends have are not gifts at all. Um, they're being used by the devil as tools. They're being given information by the devil to win people over to the occult. And it definitely worked for me. And so it's really hard because you have to recognize that people that are so dear to you are being used in this way. And it doesn't go over well when you try to talk to them about it either. So it's a terrible situation. It's a rough situation. And it would be a lot easier to do what Akin does with a lot of these different individuals and say, like, there's a lot of things that we don't understand in, God's universe. And some of these things are them or maybe them, but we do understand these things. God has helped us to understand these things for millennia, and we're just being willfully ignorant if we don't recognize that. Um, at any rate, in March of 2024, that was just this year, Akin was a guest of Catholic podcast host Matt Fradd. If you watched his show Pints with Aquinas, it's one of the most popular Catholic podcasts out there. Akin was a guest on the show for 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours. And far from upsetting the audience, they were absolutely thrilled that Akin was on the show for this long because, as I mentioned, people absolutely love him. So on the show, of course, Akin talked a lot about the paranormal, including UFOs, one of the subjects that I'm very into, as you know, finishing up my UFOs and Catholicism book right now. During the course of these 6.5 hours, Akin told Fradd, among other things, that there could be many different Marys throughout the universe who've given birth as part of many incarnations of Jesus. This is something that Thomas Aquinas called derogatory to the faith. I mean, as if common sense wasn't enough for us to understand or realize that. And at one point in the conversation, Fradd, who's hugely Marian, very supportive of Mary, he seemed to be attempting to is this really what you're saying? He says, so hypothetically, theoretically, this is a quote, you've got a mother of God on another planet, end quote. And then Akin cuts him off and says, quote, maybe they might not have sexes though, or they might have more than two. Okay, this is what Jimmy Akin said. So he's saying that another Jesus could be born of not even a man and woman, some other designations on some other planet. And this is the kind of theological insanity that I believe that does evidence the point number one for Catholics looking at the extraterrestrial question. Any attempt to theologically allow for intelligent life outside of Earth very quickly leads into not only heresy, but abominable heresy like this. But UFOs are not for today. That's not what we're talking about. So we are going to get to the point. And so we're going to talk about Father Nathan Castle. And I'm going to take you on a little extended trip into this priest who has been featured on Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. He did a whole show about his ministry, and then he had him on as a guest. And I really hope that this will help you to understand that you really need to listen very closely and not accept things that Catholic theologians are telling you just because they're Catholic theologians, they're distinguished and people love them. Because this is extremely dangerous stuff, my friends, extremely dangerous. So in 2023, Akin had addressed on his show the activities of Dominican friar Father Nathan Castle, who has founded a ministry to serve what he calls the deceased souls who've told him and his prayer partners that they have had interrupted death experiences, or IDEs. Later, Akin would have Castle as a guest on the show to talk about this personally. And I'll put the links down in the description to this podcast so that you can go and listen to these shows on your own if you like. I hope that you do. Castle started his work in helping these, what he calls stuck souls, after having a dream of a man who burned to death on a car radiator. So he started talking to the man that he dreamed about. I mean, why you do this, I don't know. God expressly forbids us from speaking to spirits, which we should never, ever, ever do, except for the saints, of course. And, Jesus, Mary, and our guardian angel. So he starts talking to this man who died. And unsurprisingly, the man started to talk back. And Castle says he became convinced of the authenticity of this man because he was able to later historically verify that this man did, in fact, die in this way. This is just so absurd and naive to me. I mean, it really, I can't even wrap my head around how gullible a priest could be about this. I mean, the devil knows everything that happens on earth, everything that has ever happened, and can make a good guess at what's going to happen because he knows everything else that is going on right now, right? So he keeps it all in this, preternatural file cabinet to use against us when the opportunity arises. But apparently Father Castle didn't get this. So 400 cases and almost 3 decades later, Castle is revered and referenced by not only Catholics, but mediums, psychics, and other occultists. And you'll find in both print and online many occultists who call what Castle does, quote, wonderful, moving, important, and other, praiseful things. Castle claims that at one point, God himself asked him if he could use his voice to speak through him. Let me repeat that. Castle claims that God himself asked if he could use Castle's voice to speak. That is, to serve as a direct voice medium for the creator of the universe. Okay. Really almost inconceivably abominable, right? But Castle tells us that it's okay that he does this, that he serves as a medium and a channel for spirits, because he prays before he enters into these communications. This is something that I did hundreds of times, and I observed thousands of times in my colleagues as a paranormal investigator obsessed with spirit communications. We would sit around the seance table, the Ouija board, the spirit box, pick up the dowsing rods, bring the medium in, and we'd pray. God, we want to communicate with the souls that are trapped here, or the spirits that are causing the disturbances here. So please only allow those spirits to talk to us. Or we turn on the ghost box and say only human spirits are allowed to speak through this ghost box, like as if we have any control over that. Okay. And as far as praying and asking God to protect us, we're basically saying, God, I'm about to participate in activity that you have said is an abomination to you, and please protect me while I'm doing it. It's just absolutely absurd. Um, Father Nathan Castle says that St. Michael is someone that's frequently with him when he does this channeling and mediumship with these stuck souls. And here's what the book of Revelation says about St. Michael the Archangel. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. The dragon and his angels waged war, and they did not prevail, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Okay. Michael, as we know, Saint Michael, the archangel, is the leader of the heavenly army of angels. Okay. He was a leader of the war, in the war against Lucifer. Okay. We pray the Saint Michael prayer every day for Saint Michael's protection against the devil. But Castle tells us that Michael is not this warrior that we have been taught as Catholics that he is. Castle says he knows Michael, quote, very well after so many years of working with him in his Stuck Souls ministry. Now, you might want to sit down for this. Castle says St. Michael is, quote, an angel of light and, quote, has no enemies. He further went on to tell Jimmy Akin, quote, St. Michael is not trying to vanish a foe, end quote. Now, folks, there is literally no bigger falsehood you could speak about St. Michael, the unquestioned commander of the angelic army against the devil. And it's deeply perplexing to me that not only does Castle say that Michael has no enemies and is not trying to vanquish a foe, he calls him an angel of light. The exact words often used and used in the Bible to, used in the gospel, to the very words used in the Bible to describe Lucifer. I mean, his name means Lucifer. So why would Castle use this phrase to describe St. Michael? Now, I know as a longtime paranormal investigator who has encountered a lot of demonological cases, I would think that Akin, a longtime paranormal investigator himself, would know this, that there is an entire mini army of fake demonic quote unquote saints and quote unquote quote angels who serve medium psychics, healers, and other occult facilitators like Father Castle. Fake Saint Michael is the main one. But fake Mary, also very big. I mean, just look at all of the fake Marian apparitions throughout the ages, literally thousands of them. You can go on Wikipedia, I think, has a list, or someone made a list. You can find it online. I'll try to find it and put it in the comments in the description of this episode. of all of the alleged Marian apparitions. And as we know, there's just like, I don't know, a dozen of them or something that are legit. But man, fake Mary is out there. In my UFO work, I've encountered and studied a lot of man named Chris Bledsoe in North Carolina, who communicates with UFOs and summons UFOs. And he says that he's in contact with this quote unquote, the lady, who he says is this, divine being, the divine feminine, who's ushering this era of the divine feminine. And she's obviously of some god, some goddess, fallen goddess, angel. Um, and he's got a whole cult of people that follows him and his fake Mary. And it's just deeply disturbing. At any rate, I myself had a run in with fake St. Michael when I foolishly elected to undergo something called remote spirit release therapy, not long before my conversion from the occult, which was about 5 years ago now. And the therapy, which was it was kind of created by the late parapsychologist, Dr. Terence Palmer, and it's geared towards releasing a person from spirits that may be attached to them, including human ones and non-human ones. This is all done remotely, so you just give your name, no other information about you, just your name and the city that you live in, your first name and the name of the city that you live in, and it's all done remotely. In fact, it was done in England. And there's a facilitator and a medium that do this. So the facilitator kind of walks the medium through all of the areas of your like chakras and all that stuff to remove these alleged stuck spirits from you, right? So after this was done, I got the report, and you get the transcripts of the session, right? The audio transcript, and the audio recording and the transcript of the record of the session. The medium stated that I had such a dark force energy, they don't say demon, attached to me, that he had to call Saint Michael himself to take this dark force energy away. And there was, during this whole process, the whole session, there was zero mention of God or Jesus, just Saint Michael. And this incident was one that really got me thinking very deeply about just what I was doing in the world of paranormal investigation, and looking into all of these things so deeply, and getting into occult methodology for so many years. Um, that fake Saint Michael, that, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, Saint Michael. Yeah. Saint Michael rules. He had to come get my demon, And then I started to realize that, first of all, this medium was telling me this, and we're not supposed to be talking to spirits. And then there was no mention of God or Jesus, like I said, just Saint Michael. And this has now been revealed to me to be the fake Saint Michael that is very, very busy out there in the world of the New Age. Not incidentally, many of the same folks that has these fake saints and angels at their beck and call also carry around St. Benedict medals and protective crystals in the same pocket. A lot of ghost hunters that are not, they're not religious at all. They don't even talk about God or Jesus, but they carry around St. Benedict medals. Now, Father Castle has claimed that the souls in these cases have shown a sort of are shown a sort of a menu of different living people that can help them get unstuck, and that these souls he works with choose him from a variety of these different helpers from many different backgrounds, faiths, and occult abilities. Father Castle appeared on a podcast of a woman named Irene Weinberg, who is a self-described healer, and she interviewed Castle for her blog, and commented that it seems similar to when people come to one of her New Age events featuring a lot of different psychics, mediums, and healers, and they choose one that they feel a connection to. And Father Castle concurred. He said, yeah, it's just like when people come to your New Age conferences and pick a psychic. Anyway, Castle said that choosing an afterlife facilitator is kind of like choosing local activities from brochures at a hotel concierge desk. There's no mention, incidentally, of just who is it that's giving these souls the menu of occultists to choose from for help. Is this God saying, would you like a Buddhist or a Catholic? Would you like a psychic or a channeler or a chakra reader? I don't know. Castle then goes on to tell Weinberg that there is not really judgment on the other side. There's only accepting the truth of one's actions in life. There's no shame. Fitting with this claim, none of his souls ever mention God either. Their only concern seems to be with their own anger, their selfish desires, and their controlling motivations. Even though death is the moment when we are shown God's judgment of us, and for any human soul, this would be a moment of horror and remorse and repentance, followed quickly by the singular desire to be united with God, and nothing else. Like, what else would you be thinking of, right? But in Castle's cases, the souls show no remorse or even concern for offending God. Their only overriding absorption is with their own concerns, their own petty concerns, the unfinished business, the anger they have for somebody, um, yeah. Jimmy Akin, in the end, after, looking at Father Castle very extensively, said that his work is fine and is in accordance with church teaching. Didn't surprise me, but like I said, deeply disturbed me. I hope that you, my dear listeners, will come to a very different conclusion about the work that Father Castle is doing with his ministry after learning what we learned together today about it. And as I mentioned, I hope that you will take what Catholic theologians and apologists say with a grain of salt, especially when they are talking about people who are involved in the occult. It is, there is nobody that's policing this stuff. And it's really disturbing that no one seems to be bothered by the increasingly occult teachings of a lot of the people in our faith that are supposed to be keeping us on the straight and narrow. And they're doing the exact opposite. I will be mentioning Jimmy Akin a lot on this series. A lot of the things that I do want to talk about this series, I want to talk about because I was shocked that he was promoting them on his show. Things like remote viewing, things like, mediumship, things like, all these kinds of using occult tools in paranormal investigation. And the things that he reads into different cases over the years too. So he will come up over and over, and I hope that it will help. I know my show is very small compared to his, but I do hope that even if one person starts taking a closer look at the things that some of these apologists and theologians are saying, and with a keener eye and a smarter eye. I hope that will be enough for me if just one person, if I can help one person understand that you're going down a bad path if you are accepting that this kind of stuff is okay, because it absolutely is not. Thank you so much for being here with me on Uncanny Catholic. My name is Ursula Bielski. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Please put down in the comments what you think about this content, about the format, what you'd like to hear about on this show. And please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified when a new episode airs. Thanks so much for being here. Until next time, I am Ursula Bielski. Remember to pray for ghosts. See you next time.